Good morning. We are going to work together today, and I'm going to show you a very simple technique using oil pastels and watercolors um, to show how the oil pastel will repel the watercolor, and you could build on top of the oil pastels with watercolor that are going to soak underneath. It's a lot easier to see, to understand, than to hear me try to explain it, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on this, okay? Feel free to follow along, or if you just want to watch and then maybe try it at your own pace, I would love to see what you end up coming up with. But I'm going to go ahead and start by making, we're going to do a sunset or a sunrise theme, because I just find clouds, puffy clouds, little happy puffy clouds, I just find clouds to be extremely relaxing to look upon, and there's just this contrast of color that happens when you put these blues and purples over the brilliant yellows, oranges, and reds that I'm going to put down for my sky in watercolor afterwards. All right, so as I'm making these clouds, I'm using a dark blue oil pastel, and I'm just going in like these circular motions and thinking along how clouds are. It's essentially a fractal. Like, some are small circles, some are large circles, but they all kind of follow along the same similar motion. And as long as you keep following that same similar motion over and over again, up and down and back and forth, you will essentially make a cloud. It's one of those things that if you overthink it is when it just doesn't look right. So you just kind of have to get in that motion, making these tiny little circles back and forth, keeping them pretty tight, clustered together. All right. I'm going to bring these up over here, give the illusion of the sky getting bigger over our heads as the clouds get smaller, as we look off in the distance. We always got to consider our paper when we're looking at it. As we look up, everything up here is supposed to be what's going to be like what we're looking up at the sky right above our head, whereas everything at the bottom of our paper is going to represent everything towards the horizon line. So everything as it goes towards the horizon line or the bottom of our paper essentially gets smaller, and we can create that optical illusion by just making our objects, in this case clouds, get bigger and bigger as they move up the page and smaller as they move down it. Okay, I'm going to take some purple in here now, remembering that my light source is going to be coming up from this direction as the sun is either rising or setting. So purple, being a darker color, is going to sit on the tops of the clouds where the shadow would actually exist, as the sun, our light source, is shining up from the bottom of the clouds. So again, going back to the motion that I'm using here and remembering, keeping in with that theme of clouds are fractals, I'm using the same simple kind of squiggly, I call it my scribble technique, back and forth in these short motions, and I'm staying within like the shape that I've already created when I put that blue down. And I'm going to really just kind of trace over the top. I don't want to come down too much into that cloud, because I have to remember, I need to remember that there's a light source existing. And so I'm going to have this purple over the blue on the tops. I'm going to try and move through this a little faster. I'm going to teach class this morning, so this is my demonstration to bring into them so they can see what can be achieved. And then figured, since I was creating something that I essentially have to be able to give clear and concrete direction for. What better opportunity to practice giving that direction to children live in a matter of hours than to do another Facebook, or not Facebook, it will be posted on Facebook, YouTube art making demo. I haven't posted many of these, but when I have, they've been well received, and hopefully this is another fun, simple technique in which you'll gain some new perspectives and ways of looking at your art as you approach your art with perspective, things bigger on top, smaller on the bottom, and also direction of light, like where is your light source coming from? To keep in mind where you should be placing those shadows so that your viewer and yourself, when you look at your art, you feel satisfied with what you're seeing, that it makes sense, like that though it's obviously a representation of the world around us, it's a proper representation. Like there's not anything saying that's not right. Okay, we got that purple in there, and now underneath this blue I'm going to come in with some white, and I'm going to just use this white to blend these colors together. I'm not using white when I'm using my oil pastels as the color white. White with oil pastels is a blending tool. I don't think a lot of people pick up on that very fast. It took me a long time before I was like, oh wow, white is the perfect blending tool for oil pastels. But it definitely softens that otherwise like Crayola crayon look. I do have to be mindful as I'm going up into the purple not to try and bring too much down to those lighter spaces that I'm wanting to keep. And after we go through and blend these together, see that makes a nice like soft. You will get some of these crumbs. Just take your finger. It's okay. It might blur a little, but that's okay. Clouds are blurry. Just rub them away. All right. It's just a real monotonous thing. I'm going back to just these like tight little circles, some of them small, some of them big, but I'm not getting huge to go back and forth to blend these colors together because I want to stay consistent with the motion of my wrist with everything I'm putting down so that I create that texture, that pattern, that consistency across. If I was to go back and forth like this, like it wouldn't look like a cloud anymore. It would begin to look flat. At this point, because I'm continually using this circular pattern and going up and down on these clouds, back and forth and trying to blend these colors together while still staying true to the form, the fractal of this cloud, it gives the illusion of depth within the cloud. So stay consistent with your motions, your movements of your wrists. We're getting close to being done with our oil pastels. And then we'll be moving on to the watercolor aspect of this. Okay. All right. Oops. All right. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this. And we're just going to put the pastels back in their home so I know exactly where they're at and I don't accidentally drop one on the floor and step on it and then get oil pastel all around the house. That's never good. Okay. I'm going to come in here with a wet on, well, I didn't tape my paper down, so I'm not going to do wet on wet. I'm just going to take my yellow. I want you to notice how many times I'm dipping my brush into my water and then bringing it back over to my paint. And then I dip my brush again before bringing the paint over to my paper. Because you can get a lot of pigment really quickly And what you want to be able to do is like not waste your pigment, is utilize as much of your pigment as you possibly can by like moving it and spreading it across the paper by adding more water to it. Now you can always go back and get more as it dilutes, but don't be so quick to constantly be going back to your palette. You should be going back to your water cup way more often than you should be going back to your palette. All right, so as the sun sets or rises along the horizon line where the sun is coming up, we are going to have the lightest color that shows up in the color spectrum, yellow. Always put your yellow down first. Following yellow, we're going to have this lovely orange. And again, look at how many times I'm taking my brush and dipping it in the water and bringing it back to my palette. I'm going to dip it one more time and come up in here. Now, I wanted that yellow to be pretty moist because I want this orange to bleed into it. And I'm going to just bring that orange right down into that yellow. And if you see, I am working quickly. We have to work quickly with watercolor because, well, one, I'm in Colorado and it's rather dry here. And so as the paper dries, the less likely my pigments have for an opportunity to like blend in with each other and begin to like really dance with one another, which is really where I think like what makes the magic happen in watercolor is when floating pigments meet with other floating pigments and to see what they do with one another when that happens. Like you don't have any control over that. You just bring them together and watch. It's like matchmaking in color. All right, again, I want you to see how many times I'm bringing my brush back to my water. Not afraid to go back for more pigment, but I want to utilize more water in this process than I do pigment. All right, this looks good. Now we're going to go to red. Okay, and there is our morning or afternoon cloudy sky. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration, and again, if you did, please be sure to like, leave a comment if you feel so inclined. Don't forget to follow our page and please share with your friends. As always, it's a pleasure to be here with you, and thank you for tuning in for D. Giles Art Styles, and I look forward to having you interact with me online next time. All right, thank you and have an awesome day.